Witwicki, St. Joseph's University, class of 2009, and I'm a lieutenant commander in the United States Navy. Primary responsibility is to serve as an airborne mission commander and air battle manager for our Navy's deployed carrier strike groups. In that role, I fly in the Navy's aircraft carrier-based command and control aircraft, the E-2D Advanced Hawkeye. The E-2D kind of acts as the eyes and ears of the admirals in command of our deployed carrier strike groups out at sea. We have long-range radars and high-tech identification and communication systems on board that help us to determine friend from foe and allow us to make informed decisions about how to engage adversaries. On the ground, I'm the director of aviation safety for my squadron, so I run a department of officers and enlisted personnel that manage the day-to-day programs that mitigate the risks associated with military aviation operations. Three main paths to becoming a naval officer. One is by attending the United States Naval Academy at Annapolis. Another is by participating in ROTC as an undergraduate at a civilian institution like the Air Force cadets at St. Joe's are doing. The last path, and the path that I took, is by completing your undergraduate education at a civilian university and then applying to what's called Officer Candidate School, or OCS. So OCS is a 3-month training program in Newport, Rhode Island, and it prepares civilians for their roles leading sailors as naval officers. Following graduation from OCS, I spent about 3 years in military flight training in Pensacola, Florida, and in Norfolk, Virginia. Only after completing all of that training was I qualified to go out into our operational fleet and to start flying the E-2 from our aircraft carriers. Naval aviators and naval officers more broadly typically find themselves in what we call a sea-shore rotation. That's where you spend a few years in an operational unit, flying your aircraft or driving your ship and completing operational deployments at sea. And then you spend a few years either as an instructor in the Navy's academic or tactics training institutions, or on a staff where you're assisting with the policy making and planning at the Pentagon or major military headquarters across the globe. That rotation continues as you grow more senior in both your sea and your shore roles. The advantage, I think, to this model is it allows me to change my job every few years, something that is a trend common in our generations, while not leaving the institution in the career that I've decided to join. Military officers need to be problem solvers with the foresight and understanding to recognize how their decisions and the actions that they take are going to impact the broader scenario around them. They need to be self-starters, they need to be strong leaders, and they need to be able to persevere in some pretty challenging circumstances in difficult environments. Beyond that, we have roles and opportunities from individuals from all backgrounds. Those with STEM degrees in either science, technology, engineering, or math will find comfortable homes in America's Navy. Those like me, whose academic experiences focus on geopolitics and national strategy, are equally valued. I think the skill sets that you develop during your time on Hawk Hill will serve you well no matter which academic avenue you've chosen to pursue. Read everything that you can. Former Defense Secretary Jim Mattis used to say that if you hadn't read literally thousands of books, you were functionally illiterate. I don't know if I would go that far, but he's on to something there. Also, work on your writing. The most successful and effective officers are the ones that can distill complex ideas and policies into easily digestible policy briefs. The more clear and concise your writing is, the more effective you can be in supporting senior leadership. With that said, careers in the armed forces are both mentally and physically demanding. So if you're interested in being a military officer, you've also got to make sure that you set aside time to work out and prepare yourself for the physical demands of both early military training and military operations thereafter. St. Joe's students thinking about careers in the military should make sure that they're reaching out to officer recruiters. Not all military recruiters, in fact, very few of them, work with prospective officers. Make sure you're talking to the right person. Additionally, each branch of service has their own recruiters. So do your research ahead of time and identify the recruiters from the military branch that you want to join. These days, it's much more common and very easy to find those recruiters on all different aspects of social media. I joined the Navy, the don't ask, don't tell restrictions were still in place, meaning that I was not allowed to be open about my own identity as a gay man. About a year after I became an officer, that policy died a long overdue death, and LGBTQ service members now serve openly and proudly in every branch of our service. In truth, I think our country's armed forces are one of the most diverse and inclusive workplaces in the nation. Individuals from every race, gender, sexual orientation and identity, economic background, they all serve side by side in the same places doing the same jobs. The only demographic barrier that you will face is age. So though there are some exceptions, in general, if you want to become a naval officer, you need to be commissioned, and that means raising your right hand and taking your oath no later than the age of 27. Interested in serving in the Navy or the Marine Corps or the Coast Guard specifically, I'd encourage you to check out the U.S. Naval Institute and its magazine called Proceedings. For those interested in national security more broadly, War on the Rocks is a website that publishes fantastic op-eds on security policy, and the Council on Foreign Relations and the Belfer Center at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government produce pretty fantastic reports and articles on all sorts of national security topics. Your first decision isn't always the right one, so be open to the possibility that you're wrong. For me, that was the biggest lesson that I learned as a junior at St. Joe's. I had been on law school track for years at that point, and I was convinced that being a lawyer was the career choice that I wanted. It took working with both lawyers and military officers for me to recognize that I was seeking out the law as a profession for all the wrong reasons. I was lucky enough to have great mentors that were able to help talk me through that process and make me realize that though I thought that a legal profession was the area that I wanted to focus in, national security and our foreign policy was really the area that gave me the most interest.